everyone, my name is Annette, and you may know me as Nettersplays, but I'm going to go over the books that I read. So this segment is called Nettersreads. So I'm going to go over some of the books that I read this past month in September. However, before I get into that, I wanted to go over some of my experience by joining a comic book or graphic novel book club. And I joined my local comic book store's book club, and they are Comix Experience. Now they have a book club where you pay about $25 a month and then you get a book. And this book is assigned for the month for everyone in the book club. And then at the end of the month, we'll go ahead and meet or talk to the actual author of the book and get to ask them questions or get to know them better. They also do signings as well, so that's really cool of them to put together all of this. So I went through that whole experience and it was amazing. So the cool thing about this book club is that you don't necessarily have to live in San Francisco to join. You can join from anywhere in the world. You can pay your monthly fee and they will mail you the book of the month. And then from there, whenever the author comes to visit or sign the book or whatever, then you can join in on that chat because it's streamed online. So it's a way of you actually joining and interacting, and you can post some questions and they'll answer them there too. So it's a really cool thing, and it's a really nice outreach that they have for the public and for the comic book community. So on that note, I'm going to go over the book of the month for September, and that is Pantheon, the true story of the Egyptian deities. This is by Hamish Steele, and the cool thing about this book is that it's not anything that I would have picked up from the bookshelf. This is something completely new and different, and it's supposed to be a funny take on the Egyptian deities then. It's not meant to be disrespectful or anything. It's supposed to be taken lightheartedly, and at first I was a little wary about it because I didn't know how it would approach the whole story of all these deities, because it's not of that author's culture or anything like that. However, he took it upon himself to kind of represent the story in a lighthearted way, as if it was being told to him from the Egyptians back then. Now, none of the stories he wanted to be offensive or anything, but he found them to be offensive anyways because there was a lot of violence and a lot of sex involved with those stories. So it's not for children, it's completely for adults. So this story covers this mythology between this battle of deities. So there's this deity Set who has this brother Osiris, and how they just really hated one another. So one of the people destroyed or murdered the other brother, and therefore that guy's son took it upon himself to take revenge. And so the story goes on. So this is a really interesting take on the mythology of that whole storyline. And it's really interesting to find out and to read about that kind of mythology. However, it's supposed to be taken lighthearted because there's a lot of violence in it. And also it's something that is educational, whereas if I wanted to read more about it, then I can go ahead and pick up a history book where it's a lot more serious. And it's supposed to be something that's just educational versus something that's playful like this book. And that's something that I really enjoyed about this book. It could be taken as offensive and such, but after meeting with the author, he actually said that he didn't want the audience to pretty much laugh at the mythology, but to kind of laugh with it because it wasn't meant to be taken as serious as we take it as history and educational purposes. So I think it goes hand in hand with the artwork too, because it's like a matte growing kind of caricatures that are presented, so it's already taking a comedic stand on that. And also I like the fact that the author came out himself and said that, so it kind of didn't make it so offensive in that way, where he didn't want it to be represented that kind of way. So one of the best parts of this book is not just the story itself, but where it led to. The actual conclusion of it and how it ended was really nice, and I really enjoyed that part of the whole book itself. Throughout the whole story, there was a lot of stuff that just didn't make sense, that was kind of gross, and at the very end, it kind of just toned it down a bit. And I really like that. So I'm not going to try to ruin it, but you should definitely check it out if you're interested. Another cool thing about this book club too is that I also got to meet the author, and I had him sign the book too, and I had him actually sign it to my bird Gizmo because I thought he looked sort of like the main character Horace in the book. So I thought that was pretty cute and neat of the author to do too. So another book that I also read in September is called Plutona. And when I was at the comic book store, it was explained to me as a contemporary take of Stand By Me. And also, it involves superheroes. Well, a superhero actually. And so it has these characters that kind of go into the forest and they find a dead body. And that body is of a superhero. Now, this story does not go into the life of the superhero so much. It kind of does a little bit, but it doesn't take over the whole book. What it goes into is the character's dilemma. And it goes into the character development of these children and how they develop and become adults. So it's more or less like a coming of age story. And the character development in this book, I found it to be really interesting because I thought that it was really neat how they did a lot of comparison between all the characters and how they all did things differently with the same dilemma. Now, this book itself, I really like the character building because it also presented the images side by side. So for example, in the introduction of the book, when they're introducing the characters, they have the characters lined up next to one another. It shows their faces, it shows where they live, it shows what they do behind closed doors, and how they are. So I really liked that small little development and the imagery that it presented in the book. Another cool thing that I really liked is the fact that it didn't go into the superhero take on the story. It presented her background a little bit, but it didn't overtake the whole story. And also that it kind of showcased how life isn't always as glamorous as you might think it is. Actually, to these children, it was something really, it was very different, and it was surprising to them too. So I think that this book is something that you can easily pick up and read within an hour. It is a complete book, so you will not read any more books in this series. It has a beginning, middle, and end. And if you're looking for a light read, then maybe that's something for you. For me, I thought it was a really nice read. So Plutona was written by Jeff Lemire. And Jeff Lemire also wrote Descender. I only read volume 1, though. I didn't read the rest of the set. I believe there's 3 or 4 other ones right now. But I didn't want to pick up the rest. I only read the first volume. And the reason is because I loved it. I really liked this whole story of this character in Descender. And what the story is about is that there was a whole bunch of colonies in space. We have a whole bunch of humans, and they had androids, and there's all these different types of species too, and we all lived on these different planets. And we depended a lot on these androids to kind of help us out, either in the fields or in our homes and such. And that is until there were these great big Titan kind of androids that came and appeared suddenly and destroyed planets. People were fearful of androids after that, and so they started eliminating and kind of getting rid of all the androids on these different planets. No one wanted any robots around. Now, 10 years down the line, there's this one robot, and his name is Tim-21. And he's a small companion robot that belonged to a child. And the thing is that he was put to sleep, and he finally woke up. And he woke up to a planet that didn't have anyone around, and he was trying to figure out what was going on. However, everyone sort of detected that there was an android and it was alive on this planet, and therefore everyone wanted to get their hands on this robot for different reasons. Now, this little boy robot just doesn't know what's going on. He's putting together all the pieces and he just knows that he has to get away. And so the story develops into this robot just trying to figure it all out. Now, what I really liked about this book is that it's only volume 1. So it's simply the beginning of a story that eventually had a twist at the end. And I was reading it and I was really interested and I was really enjoying it, and then at the final page something completely different happened. So there was a nice little twist at the end and it made me want to pick up more. Simply because of that reason, I'm not going to purchase any more volumes and I'm going to wait for the hardcover to come out for it to have all the collection of these volumes together. What I really enjoyed about the artwork in this book is the fact that it's not clear cut. Actually, the whole book is done in watercolor. So the line work is very fluid. It has this really weird tone to it. A lot of reds and a lot of blues and not much in between. Some grays and blacks, of course, but I really think it's a lot different. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't really liking it at first, but then I really enjoyed the artwork that was in it and how it applied to the story itself, how unclear it was and how messy it was too. And so so I thought it was great, and in the end I thought that it worked really well with the story itself. So definitely if you're into these android kind of sci-fi stories, then with a little bit of just confusing development, and you know it's going to be good, at least I hope so, but I could see it going in good places. You should definitely pick this one up. I highly recommend Descender. I think after reading the first volume, it just captured me. And I fell in love with it. I reread it and I thought it was really nice. Again, so definitely I'm going to look forward to the hardcover, which I think is coming out in December. So if you wait until then, you can pick up your own hardcover copy of Descender. So the final book that I read in September is another book about androids. Now, this book is called Alex and Ada. It's the Complete Collector's Edition. This is a hardcover book and it has the whole complete set, and I really enjoyed it. Now, the story itself is about this one guy named Alex, and he's just a regular guy that kind of got out of a relationship, and he's kind of just trying to figure out his life by himself. He's not sure if he wants to date or not. He's unsure if he's ready for that, but he is lonely. His grandmother decides to get him an android for his birthday. And at first he wants nothing to do with this android because there's been a bad history of androids kind of just becoming sentient and realizing that humans are the enemy and then killing humans. So that's horrible. And he just really distrusts androids. And he's unsure about what he really wants to do with this android, and he kind of flops between giving her back to the company or keeping her. The story develops in a very dramatic kind of way where it's all drama. There's not much action involved in it. There's a little bit. However, the majority of this book is just a lot of conversational pieces between the two characters and some of their friends. Just because it's conversational doesn't mean that it was bad at all, because it was also very entertaining in the sense of him questioning who this android is, if he should make her sentient or not, and kind of give her the opportunity to have a mind of her own. And in the end, it's just a story about love, and it's about humanity, and it's about just discovering yourself. So I really enjoyed this story. I think it's something that is not going to be for everyone. It's not a book that I'm going to recommend for you to read if you're not interested in a slow-paced kind of conversational or dramatic kind of book. If you're looking for a splashy sci-fi type of book, then read Descender. But if you're looking for a android sci-fi book with a lot of questions that are really interesting and a weird kind of take on it, and with dealing with love, then you should definitely read Alex and Ada. but then again, it's not for everyone. So I really enjoyed it, and I would suggest it to anyone that would be willing to read it, but definitely it's something that took me by surprise. I really loved the whole story itself and the questions that it proposed. So definitely I really enjoyed Alex and Ada. Well, thanks for joining me. And again, this is something still new to me, so if you want to suggest any other comics or graphic novels that I should definitely read, just leave it in the comments below. Also make sure to like and subscribe, and I also talk about board games majority of the time. So definitely if you're into board games or if you're new or interested, you should check out my other videos as well. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!